Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network.
We've tasted whiskey, we've tasted wine, we've tasted beer. Today, we are delving into the world of coffee. From bean to beverage, coffee on Vancouver Island. It's all about jazz with Brian Stovall. And do we really need phone books anymore? You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4, and I am resisting ordering my usual non-fat latte today here at Ceres Coffee in the North End because we're talking coffee today. We're going to look into the who, what's, hows, and tastes of coffee. It's a little more complicated than you might think. So I'm going to hold off on ordering my coffee until I gain a little bit more education on the subject, and we're sharing that education with you today on Go. We're running with a little bit of a coffee theme today. Ceres Coffee is celebrating 20 years on Vancouver Island, a great success story for a local homegrown business. And how did they do it? Well, from bean to cup. Here's Paul Beilstein with a look. Drew Sylvie is a coffee connoisseur, perhaps a coffee addict, but that's a whole different conversation for a different show. We're going to start off exploring coffee and how to consume it today with roast point. Yes. I don't know if it's clear to everybody what a roast point is.
When you're looking to buy beans, there's a lot of obviously different variables as to what you want in a cup of coffee. The first place you really should look is the roast point. We're dealing with, if we're a regular medium roast, a dark roast, or a light roast, they're all going to give unique flavor characteristics as far as what their roast point is.
I assumed a couple of years ago that darker meant stronger. And then that opens up the question that darker and stronger, if that's the case, doesn't even necessarily more caffeine.
Yes, that is correct. Darker can mean stronger. But darker does always mean less caffeine.
Less caffeine.
Yes, during the roasting process, you roast away some of the caffeine that is in the beans. So anything with a lighter roast is typically better for, let's say, a breakfast or something earlier in the morning because you are going to get more caffeine out of it.
Okay, and we all need our caffeine in the morning, absolutely. So does a darker roasting point mean full-bodied, more flavor?
The body of the coffee is all dependent on the bean and the bean's origin. It's going to vary from region to region, country to country. Okay. A dark roast will give you more of unique smoky characteristics due to it being roasted so dark. Coffee roasted on the lighter end of the spectrum will give you some more lemony notes, let's say, things that are a little bit more citrusy.
Okay, so it does almost sound like we're describing coffee as you would wine or whiskey or anything else that you consume. There are flavor profiles.
Absolutely.
In coffee. And are those being added in the roasting process?
No, nothing is being added in. What happens is during the roasting process, depending on the growing region, it absorbs tastes and flavors from the earth in which the coffee is grown. So you get unique characteristics to specific growing regions.
Okay. I'm learning so much already. Now, I've never understood decaf. Does the bean come to, first of all, why do people drink it? But that's again another story.
It still tastes excellent.
It still tastes excellent. Do you roast the caffeine out of it, or does it come from the bean decaffeinated?
We actually get our decaffeinated coffee we get it in the green format, and what it is decaffeinated in Burnaby by a company called Swiss Water Decaf. It's an all-natural process that uses absolutely no chemicals to remove the caffeine from the bean.
Okay. Is it a less of a taste experience?
No, there's absolutely no taste loss in it. What they've managed to do through crazy science and osmosis and all this other stuff, they managed to soak the green bean, the raw bean from the farms, in a warm water solution. What they do then is the water goes in and it kicks out the caffeine, kicks out the oils, which are the flavors in the bean, and then they remove those beans from the oil and caffeine soaked water. They then run the water through a special filter that removes only the caffeine, allows the flavor particles to flow through, and then they take those tasteless beans and put them back into the flavor-filled water. Wow. And through osmosis, they manage to put that flavor back into the bean somehow. So no flavor loss, all it is caffeine that's been removed from the bean to a degree about 99%.
So no, you still get a tiny bit in there.
That's way higher than industry standards. So Swiss water decaf is the absolute best way to go.
Awesome. I think as far as decaf goes, maybe 10 o'clock at night or something. That's, yeah. Anyways,
Sure.
each to their own taste, right? Do you think that people's palate for coffee is developing? I mean, I think craft beer has hit a peak. We've analyzed wine for years and years. Are we entering that world in coffee?
We've been in that world of coffee for years now. We've been in the specialty coffee industry for 20 years.
Right.
You know, we are getting more of our consumers who are diving into this like they would a craft beer or a wine or
Right.
anything like that. And it's very exciting for us, you know, and it allows us to be able to share our knowledge of the product with the public.
Excellent. Okay, well, when we come back after a short break, we're going to talk about all of those rumors and myths about how you should store your coffee at home, in the freezer, in the cupboard, grind your beans a week ahead, or 5 minutes before. We'll be back after a short break. Still to come today, 30 years of jazz at Vancouver Island University. And is the phone book obsolete? Dan Kahn is asking.
Did you know that the Beatles' first ever Canadian concert was on the 22nd of August 1964 in Vancouver at the Empire Stadium?
You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4, learning a whole lot about coffee. Today we're going to tell you the proper ways to store your beans later on this edition of Go Island. And then we're going to clarify the difference between cappuccino, latte, Americano, and all those different kinds. I think my whole world is opening up. I thought I was a coffee drinker before. I'm just getting started. We're going to throw things over to Jocelyn Matwee, a look at the Vancouver Island University Jazz program. Initially the story was supposed to be about Brian Stovall, but he's pretty modest, a little bit humble, and it's all about the program, all about the music. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We've moved behind the coffee bar here at Ceres Coffee in North Nanaimo. Drew, once again joining us, having a look at these coffee beans. And at first, the difference between these is not clear, but there is a very distinct difference.
Well, to me, they jump out like night and day, but yeah, we do have some differences here. We're working from our dark roast to a medium roast to a light roast here. You'll notice that in the roasting process, as it gets darker, you get more oils forming on the beans. As well, the beans are a slightly different size in the roasting process.
Right. So what does the oil mean? Why is that coming out?
During the roasting process, you get to a point where you call it first crack and second crack.
Is the bean actually cracking
The
at
bean
that?
is actually physically
Okay.
cracking. If I had a green bean sample here, I could show you. But
Okay.
the green beans come tiny little, really dense beans, and through the heating process, you're cooking and boiling the water and the oil and everything that's in there. So the fibrous makeup of the bean itself starts to expand. As you heat water, it expands, right? So during the expansion rate, you will actually physically hear a cracking sound.
Wow, fun. Okay, and does that affect the flavor at all? I mean, I guess more of it's being released, and that's why a darker roast has less caffeine in it? Or is that connected?
It is partly connected, yes, the darker roast, because caffeine does, you know, cook and it will disappear into the atmosphere
Right.
once it reaches certain temperatures. During the roasting process, though, you're not going to be, let's say, losing flavors. It's all still locked into the cell structure. You just have unique flavors. You have different flavors in a dark roast compared to a medium roast there.
Okay, and is this a medium grind? Sort of what you'd put on your average?
Yeah, this would be good for your standard drip coffee machine or whatnot.
Now, just spill the myth.
Okay.
Coffee in the freezer at home when you're storing it or not?
Coffee not in the freezer at home. I never
okay.
like that because I always look in my freezer and I've got bananas waiting to be made for banana bread. I
Yeah.
might have some other goodies in there and stuff like that.
Okay.
Scientifically speaking, you know, there is pros and cons to how you store coffee, and you just got to make sure you're storing it right. If you're storing coffee in a freezer, minus 25 degrees Celsius or colder. Most of our freezers at home don't do that.
Okay.
And if you have nothing but coffee in there, it's okay.
So you'd suggest in the cupboard?
Yeah,
and
in the
how
cupboard, a
long
dark
is it
place,
okay to keep
away
it
from
in your
humidity.
cupboard?
Like an hour. No, it's joking.
Not everyone has the access that you do.
All right, fair enough. If we're talking coffee in a sealed container, away from light, away from moisture, then you want to drink your coffee within a week. Ideally a week. You can stretch it out to 2 weeks, let's say.
Okay.
It's still going to be totally fine after a week.
And would you taste the difference? Is your
Absolutely.
palate that refined?
Yeah,
that you could say this
absolutely.
coffee's been
Yeah,
sitting around for a
I
couple
drink
weeks.
coffee 20 minutes out of the roaster, or a week out of the roaster, or a day out of the roaster. There's all different tastes that are unique to when it is exactly sitting on the shelf, ready for me to consume.
Fascinating. Now, I think that I grind my beans about 3 or 4 days worth at a time.
Okay.
It's better probably to do it, grind it, brew it.
Yes.
Obviously,
Yes, you
fresh.
want to grind it immediately before the brewing process. What's happening is you're taking this one bean and you're fracturing it into maybe 300 tiny little pieces. Oxygen is a coffee bean's worst enemy. So what happens is the oxygen starts getting in here, drying it out, and all your oils and good flavors start to evaporate. Within an hour, your coffee is starting to go about 80% stale.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. I had no idea that we were going to be getting so scientific today. I think we need to do some tasting. We're going to do that a bit later on after a short break. Well, we've talked about it enough. It's time to almost taste. But first of all, there's lots of different ways that you can taste
Yes.
the coffee.
Yes. Absolutely.
Starting with,
We have here an espresso, which would be the strongest method of preparation. So you can't really get a stronger, more condensed version of our coffee. So
Okay.
this would be espresso here. This one here is an Americano. Americano is water with 2 shots of espresso poured into it, or 4 shots depending on the size and all that kind of stuff.
And if you were to go over to Europe and order a regular coffee, this is probably what you're going to get.
You would actually get one of these here.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd be offering you just an espresso, just to sip on, have that, and enjoy. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's the purest, best way to have a shot of espresso.
Good way to start the day.
Yeah.
This?
This here's a cappuccino.
Okay.
Cappuccino has thicker, foamier milk than, let's say, a latte would on this end. So.
And is that the only difference between a cappuccino and a latte?
Yeah, your ratio of milk to of liquid milk to espresso is less in a cappuccino, so the perceived strength is going to be a little bit more in a cappuccino.
Okay.
And whereas you get more of a velvety milk texture in a latte, so it helps mingle it all together.
People really tend to pick what they like and stick to it.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
really venture away from their normal habits.
Yeah, we like to have challenges sometimes, getting people to try something new. But yeah, for the most part, we're creatures of habits. So if you find something that you like, that you love, and you're gonna come in for it every day.
Okay, I'm usually going for a non-fat latte. I will try the cappuccino. I didn't even really realize that I was drinking the weakest in the line. So I think I need to work my way towards the espresso, but I'll start here with
It's still just as delicious as the next.
Oh,
so,
of
yeah.
course, yes. Well, while we're enjoying our coffee, we're going to throw things over to Dan, Con, and Victoria, questioning why do we need phone books anymore? You know, I haven't actually used a telephone book in years. I refer to the app on my phone. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. I think Drew and the team here at Serious Coffee have switched me from a latte drinker to a cappuccino drinker. Maybe we'll move on to espresso before too long. Before we go, one theater experience that is coming up to tell you all about, taking place at Malaspina Theater at the VIU campus. It's a presentation of Theater 1. Death meets his match in Mrs. Fisher, a tenacious granny not ready to take her last breath. In this surreal work of imagination and whimsy, one woman's fight for survival takes fantastical flight in a showdown with death himself. Performed by the multi-award-winning Wonderheads Physical Theater Company, Grimm and Fisher at Malaspina Theater on the VIU campus, March 27th to 29th. The presentation of Theater 1. You can get your tickets through the Port Ticket Center. Thanks for watching this edition of Go. I'm just going to keep drinking coffee and be happy with all that I've learned about one of my favorite things in life. Thanks.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's Hair and Aesthetics provided by Maffeo Salon.